What's up, everybody? Ken Paul here again, back at the Content Condo with a very, very special guest, Stephanie Granda. How are you doing? Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Ken. I'm very well. How about yourself?
I'm doing amazing. Another beautiful day. How lucky are we to live here?
We are very lucky.
We're
It's
very
gorgeous
lucky.
day.
Yeah. So first off, thanks so much for coming. I've been looking forward to this. I know that you're a very prominent, family law, divorce attorney. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Okay, awesome. So my name is Stephanie Granda. I'm a family attorney and real estate attorney here in Miami. I've been practicing now my 20th year of practice. I have my own firm, Law Offices of Granda and Associates PA. I primarily do family law, so I've been doing it for a very long time. It's what I do. I have a big passion for family.
Okay, wow. So a big passion for family. I mean, I guess in some circumstances, no one really wants to hire you. In other circumstances, maybe it's for the best. So I'm very curious, how do you get into, there's so many different forms of law. How do you find yourself in family law?
So it's very interesting. So ever since I was a little girl, I wanted to be a lawyer. I never knew, when I was younger, what I wanted to do. But I come from a divorced family. So in the back of my mind, I kind of always wanted to do something family related. My parents always got along very good. So I wanted to do something positive for people, help people come to terms, co-parent effectively. And so that's really, once I became a lawyer, it was actually really interesting. I was telling my oldest daughter the story the other day. When I took the Florida bar exam, they put one question on the exam that's any topic. It could be anything in everything that you've studied for the last 3 years in school. And my question on the Florida bar was family law.
Oh.
And, I took it and I did really, really well in the Florida bar section of the test. And I kind of I said, maybe this is, meant to be for me. I started doing it and I loved it, and at first I did a lot of uncontested divorces, which is really what I like, pushing people towards, a happier resolution. 10 years into my practice, I would say that now for the last 10 years, I've been doing more litigation, which it's sad in certain ways, but it's just where we're at. I do a lot of heavy litigation.
So is it just where we're at? Is that a common trend that people a little bit more testy when it comes to divorces?
I would say yes. I would say that there's just a lot more disputes. People aren't, they're not coming to a happy medium in certain terms, whether it's children related or whether it's having to do with asset distribution or alimony. I feel like most of my cases, right now are high litigation. Now, even if they are high litigation, there are, a fair amount of cases that resolve at mediation.
Okay.
And that's halfway through the process.
Okay. All right. So, that's probably better than kind of going through a long, drawn-out process.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about some of the cases that you've seen that are just maybe the most, the most drama-filled. This is what the people want to know. Tell us about some of the more crazier experiences that maybe if there's one or two that really kind of stand out to you. Yeah.
So I would say the more drama cases are the ones that come with the children. Unfortunately, I see a lot of disputes. Some of the parents, they're not thinking, how is this going to affect the children? Some of them are, and some of them are fighting for their children's rights. So it's on a case-by-case basis, but some of the most litigious cases are cases involving children. So I've had clients hire me where they had no custody rights. They had lost time sharing with their children, and I've been able to get their kids back through my efforts. And
I'm sure that's rewarding as well.
That is super rewarding. Those are the best cases, the ones that I'm the happiest doing, because I'm able to, win the case for the client, but not only win, but it's just get their children back, and that is priceless.
Yeah, now that's incredible. It is kind of sad to see, I guess, in some of these cases where children are basically used as pawns and, just kind of leverage points for different people. And I think it's ultimately at the end of the day, the children are going to suffer the most from that.
And they're the ones that suffer the most. Absolutely.
Yeah, and can have long-term consequences to that. You mentioned that, divorces today, or at least the cases that you're getting, they seem to be less amicable. Why do you think that is? What's in the culture now that people that these are just more tested and less, positive than maybe in the past?
I think, maybe it's a different community in itself, a lot of social media, a lot of, fight for your rights. The laws have changed, which have, I think, enabled people to fight a little bit harder. So, for example, back in the day, there was the laws were in favor of women having most custodial rights for their children.
Okay.
So there was less to fight about because the law was very straightforward when it came to the kids. The kids would grow up with the mom and the dad would just simply have visitation. Well, now the laws have changed where it's 50-50.
Okay.
Is the presumption is in favor of 50-50, and that's what the courts consider that it's in the best interest of the children. In order to rebut that presumption, you have to fight the case and you have to show how it would be a detriment to the children to have 50-50.
Okay. That's interesting because, I guess historically, I've always heard that in a divorce, the man's probably going to get screwed. I'm curious, is that a common misconception? And also, what does screwed even really look like?
Right, exactly. Well, I would say that 15 years ago, it's not that the men would get screwed, but the women would get the custody and then the father would only get like weekend visitation and then they would have to pay child support.
Okay.
Now, what's most prominent, what's happening in the court system is that the parents pretty much have equal rights. They have equal time sharing for the most part. And child support will really depend on the income of the parties. So it's not how it was back in the day where the father would have to pay a significant amount of child support. Now it's relative to the amount of time that the father spends with the children.
Okay. And is this just in the state of Florida or just, the United States more generally?
This is in the state of Florida.
Okay.
Yeah,
so,
every state has their separate laws.
Yeah. And from your knowledge, what states are, I guess maybe the more equal states in the divorce, what states are the more strict? I'm not sure if you have that.
Yeah, I mean, they're all over the place. Like it all depends on which state we're talking about.
Okay.
But yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about maybe kind of like the more, high asset divorces compared to the ones that maybe there aren't as many assets to be divided? I imagine the high asset ones can often be maybe more contentious and maybe more time consuming to kind of pick through, the different assets, how they be kind of, split fairly. Can you just kind of talk us through maybe just some of the cases that are maybe more complex with, more high net worth type of individuals?
Yeah. So in the high net worth, high asset, or even high income, where there may be like an alimony component to it, those cases tend to take a significant period of time because most of those parties, let's say the husband or the wife, are entrepreneurs, business owners. So in those cases, we have to do forensic accounting. We have to do business valuations. There is a longer process, a longer discovery process that will kind of like extend the case, and it becomes extremely expensive for the parties.
And I'm sure, as you start going through it, people's, laundry, forensic accounting, I'm sure you might uncover some things that you weren't trying to find.
Oh, absolutely. So those are some of the juicier cases where you see, maybe one party was spending money on things that the other, spouse didn't know about, and then it becomes what's called dissipation of marital assets, and that complicates the case even more.
Has there ever been anything that is just, maybe you're so close to the end of just kind of finalizing it, but there's just, people, then they're just going back and forth over who owns the beat up car or who owns the dresser or the, you know what I mean? Like
The most, like, the
do people get petty?
Or even, yes,
Yeah.
they do.
So
even
tell us
like
about that.
animals.
Oh,
Like
yeah, the pets.
the pets are a big deal, and sometimes it becomes very difficult.
People be arguing for the pets more than their children.
It's true. It's so true. Some of these fights are, sometimes the kids aren't even like, it's a non-issue. They agree to it, but then it's like the pettiness of, well, I want this TV. No, but I want, this, I had one case where they were fighting over like the knife sets, or it's.
Listen,
petty.
we all have like our favorite knife or something like that, our favorite utensil. I get it. And I guess maybe most of your work is probably Miami based, right?
Yes.
Is there I guess maybe just kind of what's your sentiment on marriages and relationships in Miami, maybe more generally?
Relationships, well, from what I know, I also do custody, like in paternity cases where people aren't married. And so I see a lot of people who don't get married here in Miami, and they're constantly, I've had,
So do I.
recurring clients that, it's like, okay, well, they had a kid with this woman. Now they're having another kid. So, I mean, I don't know if I can, speak as to how the relationships are, but
Yeah.
I do think that it's a high turnover rate.
A high turnover rate. That's one way to
High
put it.
turnover rate.
So tell us a little bit about those paternity issues. I mean, how does, I'll see headlines of someone claiming to be, Jay-Z's grandson or whatever the case may be. Like, how do you actually kind of go through the process to really prove that someone might be your father, or prove that this person is my child or not my child, just something like that?
Yeah, so they would file a paternity case in court,
Okay.
and there they would do the DNA test, and they would go through the entire thing. Most of the time, most of the cases that I get aren't like the cases aren't in dispute whether the child is that person's or not.
Okay.
Most of the time they know, but there's sometimes that they'll do, the DNA test. Other times they just file for custody rights, because until you file, you don't really have custodial rights over the child if you're not married.
Okay. That's interesting. Yeah. So basically, I've heard in the past that the only reason to get married is if you plan on having children. Is that, from your understanding, an accurate belief?
I mean, I think here in Miami, people have, the fairy tale, the idea of love being, marriage uniting, a woman and a man. There's a lot of religious people here in Miami.
Okay.
So I think that, I don't know that it's for children, but for children, it definitely benefits them if the parties are married. But I think here it's more out of love, out of wanting to unify, two people.
Right.
Creating a bond between them, a religious bond. So like my family, we're Catholic. So for us, it was more, it's more of a Catholic thing that you have to get married if you're like, I wasn't raised to just live with a person. I would have to leave my house married. So I think here it's more of a religious thing, at least for Hispanics.
Oh, Hispanics.
So there's a lot of Hispanics.
There's different, clearly a lot of them. Okay, so also I'm just kind of curious about maybe, who basically, trusts you to represent them? Is it oftentimes, women clients, mothers that might be going through a divorce or an issue? Is it the father? Who are the type of people that you typically represent?
I mean, I have both. So
Right.
both parties will trust me, because I've handled cases on both ends. I have the same respect for a mother and a father. I think
Okay.
that they're equally as important in a child's life.
Yeah.
I had both of my parents very involved in my life. They're still super involved in my life. And I think for the psychological well-being of a child, I think it's important that both parents, equally raise their children. As far as like time sharing, I really think it depends on the availability of the parent. There are parents that are super busy, they travel, they're unable to really follow a 50-50 time sharing schedule.
Yeah.
In those cases, I would say that the parents really need to think about what's best for the child. But in terms of involvement, being there at graduations, being, actively present for their children, I think both the mom and the dad are extremely important in a child's
Definitely.
life.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's unfortunate when some people aren't as lucky to have, a two-parent household. So, I mean, if there's a way to kind of, have, both a mother and a father in the child's life, I think that's, very important. I'm very curious about, I'm curious if there's anyone who kind of walks into your office and you kind of go through all the facts, look through all the details, and realize that they're kind of the one in the wrong in the situation. How do you go about representing someone who, might be the petty one, or might be the person that isn't really making the smooth divorce or transition?
That's such a great question.
Yeah.
And it's a good question because I try to educate my clients to really trying to co-parent with the other parent. There are times where it's not possible, or no matter how much you do and you try to educate them as to, what the law is, what the judges are going to do, how it's going to affect their children, they don't like see the light at the end of the tunnel, and they kind of, they bump heads with me. In those cases, I am forced to withdraw from certain cases.
Oh, really? You have to fire a client?
Yeah. I mean, there's only so much you can do. I am a firm believer of a certain way of handling my cases. I'm very professional, but I'm also, I do like to encourage people to try to get along for the best interest of the children. I do fight for my clients' rights, because there are certain rights that are there for them to move forward and fight for. But at the same time, if it's something having to do with the children, I am like very strong in trying to get them to
So it's really like the children where you draw the line.
yeah, it is
Yeah.
the children. I mean, there's certain things that if I see that the other party's being unjust and there's something that they're not complying with, with the agreement, then I'll, file a motion. I'll file a motion for contempt. But if it's something that I can tell them, look, they want to travel. It might be on your time sharing week. It's not fair, but the kids do they want to go on this trip? Like, be a little bit flexible.
Yeah.
Don't fight for things that, you shouldn't fight for. You should think about that.
I mean, it's just this like there's so many different layers to it and things that like I've never even really considered. Like I was checking out your Instagram and I saw that you were posting about like traveling during the holidays or like traveling if there's a pandemic or like there's so many different things that you can think of. Where is an area where you think it's the most challenging for parents co-parenting, or where they may slip up the most?
The most challenging, I think, sometimes when they introduce new relationships to their children.
Wow, yeah.
And then creating like certain boundaries, or maybe, just the way that they carry on, their co-parenting involving that, new party can be a little tricky.
Yeah, I would imagine so. I guess that kind of goes without saying. I'm just curious I'm also very been interested in like to just on like a day-to-day basis, like how many cases are you handling? Are there periods of time where you don't have as many cases? Are there cases that just take up so much of your time and all your capacity? Like where's that balance that you like to have?
Right. Well, that's also a good question. So I generally am a small boutique firm. Right now, I'm the only attorney on staff, but I do have paralegals, office managers, and I have other staff that help me. I try to maintain a pretty low caseload. So anywhere between 30 and 40 cases at a time is generally where I'm at.
Wow, sounds like a lot.
It can be. So depending on whether certain cases, they kind of ramp up and there's a lot of high litigation, it can be, a little bit. But I've learned to manage. I've been doing this for 20 years. So,
Wow.
we try to close the cases out, meaning push them to resolution, going to mediation, doing an agreement. So there are a lot of cases that can and will resolve early on. The high litigation cases will take, years. I mean, I've had certain cases that take 2, 3. I had one case that took 6 years or more.
6 years.
That was a super, super long case.
The kid's going to be out of high school at that point. Doesn't it rip it off?
Believe it or not, that case was only, they were only fighting on alimony and assets. The kids were already adults.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I
I
know.
mean, yeah, you hear about people that, just like sign the papers already, just take the money and just let me move on with their life. I mean, why is it that some couples will decide to stay like, legally married? Like, what are some circumstances where that makes sense?
Well, some couples do that because, the saying, it's cheaper to keep her. I mean, that's what most people do, but that can cost you more money in the end, because the longer you're married, there's durational alimony now here in the state of Florida. The longer you're with the person, the longer you're going to end up paying alimony.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make sense. I mean, you'll hear people that have been like, separated for 20 years, but they're still technically legally married. They don't even have the contact information for their former spouse. And it just doesn't, I never really was able to wrap my head. It doesn't make sense, right?
I agree.
Yeah. Okay. So why don't you just tell the people a little bit about, where to find you, who are your best clients, when should they reach out, that type of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can contact me. I have social media, Granda Law Miami. I also have Facebook, Law Offices of Granda and Associates PA. You can find my personal page, Stephanie Granda. Anyone can contact me. I have clients who contact me for a consultation. They're not sure if they're going to formally get separated or if they're just wanting to know their rights. And I'm super open. I sit down with the client. I give them, my advice. Sometimes, they're thinking of a divorce, but they're not sure how to go about it. So I kind of, it's weird to say, but pre-planning in some cases when it comes to separation, because there are children involved. What do we do with the house? So anytime there's some kind of uncertainty in your relationship, in your marriage, in your if you just have children and you're not married, in your relationship and you're looking to break up, you can sit down with me. I will go over everything with you. I will lay out your legal rights, and it's super important for you to know, because some people don't know. There are a lot of misconceptions in family law. The law is constantly changing every year. There are changes in the alimony statute, changes in the parenting statute. So it is important that if you do have any questions, you do consult with an attorney, someone who has experience, someone who has been around for a long time, and someone who cares about what they're doing. And that's where I come in.
Yeah, I guess if you have any doubts, it's better to kind of have an earlier conversation than it'd be too late.
Yes, definitely.
Well, Stephanie, thank you so much for coming. I enjoyed this conversation.
No,
a lot of
thank
things that
you.
I've been interested about in a long time. So I'm glad you're able to stop by the Content Condo and take the time to podcast. This was amazing. So I'm
That
glad
was so
you can
nice.
come by.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. All right, guys, that's another episode. Thanks so much for watching. Tune in. A lot of exciting episodes to come, and we'll see you guys very soon. Thanks.